Hello, good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Mary and Robert, you're missing the background.
Haven't gotten there yet. I just got home.
Just saw it.
That's all right. All right.
Getting closer to that option.
I just did it, so luckily we got it on. And it's backwards.
Looks good from here.
Yeah, it looks good from here.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll call to order the City of Woodlands Advisory Redistricting Commission public hearing for October 12th, 2021. I want to note that this public hearing will be conducted pursuant to the Government Code Section 54953E, which allows the city to hold public meetings via teleconference during a proclaimed state of emergency when state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing. Madam Clerk, would you mind calling roll call?
Yes, thank you. Bernardi?
Present.
East?
Present.
Kimball?
Present.
Moreno?
Present.
Simas? Simas? Robert? He probably can't hear us. I can see him. Robert, can you hear me?
Maybe we text him. We see he's here, so.
Yeah, I'm going to just put him down because I see he's here.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so that takes us on to item C, the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Mary, would you mind leading us on the Pledge of Allegiance?
You bet. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That takes us to item number D for public comment.
Just confirming. No public comment. No public comment.
Thank you. We do have members of the public here today with us, right?
I don't see anyone.
Yeah, we do have, David, you may be referring to Mr. Stanionis. We'll introduce Mr. Stanionis maybe later in the meeting. He's actually agreed to potentially be a resource for the city and the commission with his background in demographics and demography. So happy to engage with him and give him an opportunity to introduce himself and provide his background later.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Ken. All right, seeing that there's no public comment, we'll move on to E for minutes. Given that we received that via email, may I have a motion to approve minutes?
I move that we accept minutes.
Thank you. First by East. May I have a second?
Second it.
Second by Bernardi. Thank you.
So I'm going to call the roll on the minutes.
Thank you.
Bernardi?
Aye.
East?
Aye.
Kimball?
Aye.
Moreno?
Aye.
Simas? I don't see him anymore.
Neither do I.
Okay.
Okay, that now moves us to item F for public hearings.
Chair, I'll go ahead and do a quick introduction, and then I'm going to hand it off to Henry Castillo with Best from Krieger, our legal firm. Ethan had a conflict this evening, and we were fortunate to get Mr. Castillo to join us. He's done these presentations in other cities up and down the state. So happy to have him walk the commission through the process. But set the stage real quick. As you know, this is the first of a series of public hearings that must be held prior to the city of Woodland adopting a new council district map that will define council districts moving forward, informed by the new census data that was released recently. So tonight, Mr. Castillo will walk you through sort of the legal foundation of redistricting, as well as provide a process and timeline that the commission has been providing great feedback and input. I think we've finalized what that public input process will look like, and then the schedule ultimately that the commission has agreed to sort of bind itself to in order to deliver to the city council by next March a recommendation from the commission regarding a single map or even potentially a series of maps that you would like the council to consider before adopting its final redistricting map. So with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Mr. Castillo. Henry, if you're able to share screen, I don't know if you're going to operate the slides or if Anna's going to handle that for you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my mic and my camera. I even wore my favorite tie to present to you guys, and you guys can't even see me. And I swear I should save too. But I could operate the slides. If you could let me share my screen, and it'll be a lot easier to do it that way.
Great.
You do have permission to share. You should be able to do that.
Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. You would think after almost a year and a half, we would be a lot better at this, but I'm still kind of not that good. So today's the first public hearing. There's 4 required public hearings. So today it's going to be pretty basic. I'm just going to lay out some project timelines. So the project timelines, key deadlines, key steps, and hearings that are upcoming for your commission. So as most of you guys know, the city of Woodland moved from at-large to by-district elections with Measure U that was passed in 2014. And then your first by-district elections were in 2016. So this process is very similar to that process that you guys underwent in 2016. Just at this time, we're plugging in the new census data. So this is a process that happens in every city that's by district every 10 years. So after we get new census information, every city tries to make every district pretty even when it comes to population. There are limitations. You can't just make it even all across without taking some stuff into consideration. And I'll walk you through that today. So as you guys see here, the first 2 districts that are going to be up is District 1 and 3, and that's going to be up for election in November 2022, and that's going to be the first election with these new districts. And then Districts 2, 4, and 5 are going to be up in November 2024, and that's going to be the first time that set of residents votes with these new boundaries. So this is a quick breakdown of what the redistricting process entails. It entails, like I said, 4 public hearings. And then at that last hearing, we're going to introduce some maps. And then from there, those maps, you guys are going to make a recommendation to your city council. So if you guys Google, I think I did Woodland Redistricting Process, the city already has their webpage up and running. It breaks down how people can get involved. It breaks down key public hearings that are going to occur at each city council district. And it also gives residents an opportunity to submit maps. So those maps would go on to us, and then we would take a look at them and present all the maps to the commission. The deadline for the map adoption is April 17, 2022, and that's when the final maps are going to be turned into Yolo County election department, and those are the maps that are going to be used for the elections. So the city started pretty early, so we have enough time to go ahead and conduct the public hearings and actually take our time and coming up with these new boundaries. So the process is governed by three separate things. One is the federal law. So like I said, equal population, and then the Federal Voting Rights Act, and then no racial gerrymandering. So that means just no dilution or packing of minorities into a single district. You got to be really conscientious on how you distribute the minorities and not dilute any other vote. But at the same time, you can't pack them into one district. So there's going to be I'm going to say one thing and then I'm going to say another thing. Just remember that we can't just focus on one factor. We have to take the several different factors and use that on all the different new jurisdictions. The other governing law is the California criteria for districts. So that would be the California Voters' Rights Act. So that one looks at topography, geography, cohesiveness, integrity of the territory, and communities of interest. I'll talk a little bit more about communities of interest once I get to some of the other slides and define a little bit of what that actually entails. So the cohesiveness and continuity is we don't want the city of Woodland to be the example that everybody uses to show gerrymandered districts. We've all seen those districts that look like iguanas, or some look like dragons, or some even look like blood spatter on a murder scene. So we definitely do not want that. Your districts your districts as they are now, but they're pretty squared and they have nice looking boundaries. I'll show you those maps of the existing districts in the next slide. So some of the other traditional principles are minimizing voter shifted to different election years. So we definitely want to minimize if the residents are in those particular districts are going to vote in 2022, we want to minimize the residents that we shift to 2024 or the vice versa. So we definitely don't want them to be able to vote for their representatives and not skip election cycle if at all possible. And then the other one goes back to that, respect voters' choices and continuity in office. So this goes back to not diluting so we cannot favor or discriminate against a political party candidate or an incumbent. So at the same time, that we want to respect their vote, we also don't want to favor the incumbent that they currently have. So we got to take that into mind. So whenever we're drawing these new district lines, we have to take that into consideration. Also take a look at future population growth. I know that there's a lot of land around Woodland and probably a lot of development going on. So we should also take that into consideration when drawing these new districts. And then the other one is preserving the core of the existing districts. So we don't want to come in with completely different maps and just shift everything around. So we want continuity, but at the same time, equality. So these are the current existing districts. And as you can see, I said that they're good looking. There's no dragons or blood spatters or taking a little bit from here or a little bit from there. There's nice clean lines. So these are some of the questions for the residents. These are some of the questions that the residents should be taking into mind when developing their maps or giving input. What is your neighborhood? So what is something that brings that neighborhood together? Is it the high school? Is it a park? Is it the soccer fields where the kids play, or the baseball fields where the kids play, and those homes around there? We definitely wouldn't want to cut a park in half or anything like that. We will want to keep these neighborhoods together as much as possible. And some of the other ones are, what are some of the geographic boundaries? Is there any big streets or any big landmarks that are around your city that you definitely want to also keep together? So these are some of the questions that residents should take into mind when providing their public input. So this one goes back to the community of interest. So what defines your community? It's a geographic area plus shared issue or characteristics. This is shared social or economic interest. So we definitely want to keep those communities of interest intact and keep them together, since they share similar social and economic interests. The other one is, would this community benefit from being included within a single district for purposes of its effective or fair representation? So when dividing up the district, like I said earlier, we definitely would not want to divide up neighborhoods. We want to keep these neighborhoods together because most likely than not, they share the same social and economic interests. So these are questions that the public should be looking at. So what is your neighborhood and what are its boundaries? What are other notable areas that are in the city and what are their boundaries? And of course, any questions about what's next. So the full census data was released on August 12, 2021. Right now, we're still going through all the data and looking to see how these districts have changed population-wise. And then we're gonna let you know at the next public hearing, show you the actual numbers and how the populations have shifted. And like I said earlier, the approved maps must be submitted to Yolo County Registrar of Voters no later than April 17, 2022. And here's a timeline of what's next. So right now we're at the pre-draft maps. This is the first public hearing, like I said, and we're just laying out the law for you and also the timelines and what's next. So the next meeting, we should have the census numbers and hopefully an initial maps to show you and see which ones are the ones that are legal and which ones are the ones that you can consider. And then from there, we'll publish the draft maps, and then we'll have a public hearing on the draft maps. And then the draft maps have to be published for 7 days prior to adoption, and that would be 7 days prior to adoption by the city council. And then the final hearing and adoption, which we're hoping we can do sometime early next year in order to meet the deadline of April the 17th, 2022. And that concludes the presentation. Is there any questions?
Commissioners, do y'all have any questions?
I don't know. Thank you.
Excuse me, I do have a question.
Peggy?
So with the new district lines going into place for an election that starts in 2022, but only applies to 2 districts, the incumbent in the remaining district remains in that same numbered district, even though the boundary lines might shift. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So even if the lines shift, the incumbent would remain there until the following election of 2024. So there might be a little overlap in between the elections, but then it'll clear up on the following election.
Henry, I have a question. There's a mentioning of if there was a insufficient amount of public input, that there's a planning approach with other data included. Could you talk to us about that? I think it was, there you go.
Yeah, so Going back to that slide. Yeah, so if there's an absence of public testimony, then staff can use planning records or define specific neighborhoods to pretty much using findings in order to support the redistricting and the creation of those boundaries.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I know that there's district-specific dates on when you guys are holding those elections in specific city council districts, and those are already up on the website, the city website, under redistricting.
Okay. Yeah, I think in today's county supervisors meeting, there was a mentioning of there might be a slight misunderstanding as the different deadlines, you know, with the county having a much more rushed deadline, and then here at the city of Woodland. So I think more education and, you know, more outreach from staff and from commissioners here will benefit us getting more public testimony for this, just clarifying that up.
Yes, the public testimony is very important just to ensure that that the city's able to use some of their findings and not just depend on staff findings, but also depend on residents' finding on supporting these new boundaries.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, David, you know, good point regarding, you know, the general public may not understand the nuances between the county's process and their timeline relative to ours. So we can work on the website and on communication where appropriate to clarify that, you know, we have two independent processes going on right now, and our timeline obviously being a bit more protracted than the county's given the election timing.
I think that would be good. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would also argue that given the significant interest in the county's redistricting process that seems to be occurring, we might actually get more participation in our process as well. So people are tuning in.
That's what I'm hoping for too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Commissioners, anybody have any more questions? So where does that take us now, Ken?
Yeah, so what we wanted to do next was ask Mr. Hewitt to give the commission an update on the mapping tool. We've had some preliminary conversations with the commission around the tool. It has a link on the city's webpage. It's still not fully active, so I wanted to give Danny an opportunity to share with the commission kind of where we're at relative to the tool. We hope, I believe, by the end of the week to have that tool fully functional and available for the public and the commission to start using. But thought it'd be helpful to take an opportunity both for the commission and the public to understand how that tool works and how they can use it once it goes live to submit communities of interest, neighborhood boundaries, and district map recommendations. So Danny, if you wouldn't mind walking the commission through where we're at with the mapping tool.
Before that, I apologize.
Yes.
I didn't want to just skip. I did want to thank Henry Castillo for that presentation and that information and background for us. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skip that. Thank you, but I wanted to make that clear. All right.
Oh, no problem. Thank you guys for having me.
Of course. All right, Danny, I apologize for interrupting you.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. So where we're at with the tool. So I did publish a web map tool. Basically, it just has demographic information. That is kind of its sole purpose, is to show the existing boundaries and the newest census information at the block level, which is the finest grain detail level that the Census Bureau offers. So it's broken out in kind of some key areas are Hispanic and non-Hispanic, and then in the different racial lines. So it's white, African-American, Asian, Pacific Islander, Native American, Alaskan, and I think there was an other people could identify as other this year. So those are the different layers you can turn on and off. So you will see those down at the block level. And that is kind of what that tool is for. It is basically just to show the demographic information that we got from the state's Census Bureau. from their department. So things are moving fast this week. So over the last 24 hours, we've actually gone out on Tom Stanionis' recommendation and purchased an additional tool that will really allow us to take our mapping to the next level. This will basically be a tool that makes it much easier for public to do a mapping, draw their own boundaries online and submit that way. We did have some limitations with web mapping on how they would submit other than just a graphic line. And then I would have to take those lines back in and then do the math myself. This tool kind of allows that to be done in real time. So they can get instant feedback of how these boundaries are shaping up as they're drawing them. And I think that would just be a much easier tool for me and for much, more feedback and input for them as they're developing these on their own. I mean, I think we're still going to have other methods like just paper maps they can submit using the demographic information. They can draw their own on a piece of paper or the laminated examples we saw from Davis. So we're going to have different options, but I think this new tool is really going to just take us to another level of user input and users having the most powerful tools at their fingertips and to be able to submit online and actually a working map and not have more kind of a guesswork of this might work depending on how the numbers shape up. So that is kind of where we're going to be having this new tool fill that gap, really. So, yeah,
Danny,
and we just got access to that today.
Yeah, can you provide an update on when we might be able to provide access to the public and the commission for these new tools and data?
So, yeah, the Sense state is live. I did hear back from SACOG. They're still having problems with, massaging the data they want to. They basically just told me to go back to the state's database, and that's what I've been using, since several weeks ago when we last met. So I'm just going to go with that. Okay. I'm going to confirm that everything looks right on this new mapping tool, that everything kind of lines up, but I'm pretty confident they're going to be the same, one and the same data set as far as the census information. So that's live. People can use that now. They can see the breakdowns of how some of these racial categories and how they're shaping up. So then the next piece will be hopefully by this week. Like I said, I just literally, as I was walking out the door, got access to this new tool. I'm going to be, doing a crash course and seeing what tools we could put out on the website this week to get that in people's hands right away. And definitely before these workshops happen, I want to be a pro by that time and have demoed both of these sites for you as well for the commission. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, and we'd like to offer to the commission maybe at their next meeting, which we'll talk about later in terms of schedule, bring Danny in and he can walk the commissioners through the tool as well. So maybe not pro status, but amateur status users for the tools by the time you get out of that meeting. So maybe as early as next week, if the commission is available, hopefully we can have Danny spend some quality time with you guys and get you familiar with how that tool works.
Sounds good to me. And hopefully it's easy enough to use that doesn't take a lot of training and they're intuitive. That's really what I want to put out to people. I don't want people to open it up and be like, this looks complicated and kind of give up halfway through their, as they're drawing these lines. So we really want it to be useful and easy to use at the same time.
And to that point, it'd be probably helpful for each of you before the next meeting to just, again, try to get familiar with the tool, as if you were a public resident trying to use the tool and provide feedback to us next week to help improve the user friendliness of it. So Danny, unless you have anything else, maybe have the commissioners ask some questions, and then I wanted to take an opportunity to introduce Tom Stanionis, have Tom provide a little bit of his background. Tom was instrumental in helping the city, back in 2016, we first established the districts and helping guide the ad hoc committee at that time through the mapping process. So very thankful for Tom being willing to donate some of his time here and ultimately come under contract. We hope to help us through this process and provide some expertise around demography. So any questions from the commissioners first before we give Tom a chance to provide his background?
Bernardi,
Yeah, I did kind of play around with what you had on the map, Daniel, and the one piece of information I couldn't find, and I really don't understand if you would know to tell us what the population of each block group is. It seems to vary.
Okay,
when
so-
I looked it up, it
Yeah,
seemed
yeah.
highly variable. But do we have a set number for that, or how does that work?
For each block group. Yeah, everything was at the block level, so not the block group level. I can provide an
Okay.
additional map, so it's kind of rolled up to that block group level.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's great feedback. I will get that calculated and added as an additional layer so that we could see block group level population, because I think that will be important to try to keep some of these block groups together, not just the blocks themselves, which is the finest level of detail. So that's excellent feedback. Thank you.
Great. Other questions? No? Fantastic. Thank you, Danny.
So, Tom, would you mind introducing yourself to the commission and provide any background feedback, but also insights into what you've experienced and learned through your various processes, going through redistricting and being familiar with how these demographics work.
So I worked for 20 years for the elections office, and before retiring at the end of 2018. And as part of that, I staffed the formation of districts in Woodland, as well as most of the school districts in Yolo County, the Board of Supervisors, and the school, the county school board. So I worked through this process about 6 or 7 times. And as we're going into this new cycle, I'm retired now, but Anna reached out to me to help coach Danny, who hasn't been through this before. I'm not going to be doing the guiding role that I did last time, but I'll be around to help and give some of my wisdom in dealing with the demographics and requirements of districting. If you have any questions about the way things went before, I'm more than happy to answer them. And I think that's all I need to put out there for now.
Thank you,
Are there
Tom.
any questions?
Questions?
So is the idea here, Ken or whoever, Tom, to have you start joining our meetings, the commissioner meetings, or would you just kind of be on call as we need you? Or what do you think would be the most effective?
I'll probably be at the meetings and also at the public workshops to help with any questions people from the public may have about the process and the way the process was before.
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
Basically give some institutional memory to a process that only happens every so often.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you for opening yourself up for this.
Yeah, it's like I retired and then we had a pandemic, and it's like I haven't really done meetings for like years. I mean, I used to do meetings every week, and now it's like, wow, I haven't done a meeting since 2018.
Thank you, Tom. I'm really interested to hear about your institutional knowledge, and if you had anything to share with us in terms of sort of what insight you might have in terms of, the issues or the considerations that might be coming up this time, because, given the growth of Woodland and given the short-term experience with districts that we have so far, just wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
It is still early in the process. I mean, there's the obvious, which is most of the growth in Woodland has been in Spring Lake. So that district is going to be, the population is going to be significantly larger, which means all of the other districts are going to have to grow a little while the Spring Lake district shrinks a little to accommodate the population it has. And so figuring out how the other districts will grow will be a much easier challenge.
How the other districts will grow
Yes, because most of the other 4 districts are largely encompassing neighborhoods that haven't changed size-wise.
Right.
So their population will be relatively similar to what it was 5 years ago, but Spring Lake will probably be 20 or 30% larger.
Have you seen this situation come up in your other experience with one district growing a lot and the others not?
When I did the county 10 years ago, and the county Board of Education, the big issue then was much of the growth in the county was in West Sacramento, which had always had its own single supervisor district that encompassed West Sacramento. And the manner in which and which city would share part of West Sacramento was the major controversy back then. And so you run into the situation where people that were used to being represented in a particular way will have to see that change. And you may have people who are comfortable with who's representing them now who will be seeing those lines change and then lose that representation. And again, as was mentioned, you seek to minimize that, but it's a fact of what the districts, the change in the demographics of the city are such that you're going to have to move some lines, and pretty significantly when it comes to Spring Lake.
And, based on your experiences, looking back on it, is there anything you would do differently this time than you did on the West Sacramento situation?
How do I say this? That is an issue for you guys to be concerned with. I drew the lines. I did not decide where they drew the lines. There was a lot of politics involved in where those lines were drawn and how that area was shared. So the fact of the matter is that the county is an odd beast where it's 3 large population cities with very much nothing in between.
Right.
So when you have districts crossing the yellow bypass, it's representing some people on one side and some people on the other side. And there's not a lot of commonality there. And when you start talking communities of interest, that becomes a concern when you're creating a district that has 2 discrete areas like that. And again, your role in the commission is largely that of figuring out ways to do that with as little pain as possible for the voters.
Thank you.
And thank you for allowing me to join with you in this process.
Yes, thank you, Tom. And very much looking forward to you sharing your experience and wisdom, as you said, about the last time. I'm sure it wasn't easy, especially it was the first time with the city going into districts. And I'm glad you made the point as to we did see significant growth in Spring Lake, and as Henry mentioned, there might be a change of election cycle, but that should take care of itself pretty quickly. So.
Right, David, we might want to open it up for public comments at this point.
Okay, good.
See if there's any public comment. I don't see anybody, but
Never know. Anna, is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay. Very good. So is that wrapping up our last item here?
just as a matter of procedure, maybe just formally close the public hearing.
Okay.
We don't have a gavel for you, but
Got a mouse.
you can knock on your desk. Counts.
Hope you heard that. All right, close public hearing. Thank you.
And then the commission does have, recommended action here. So we'll need a motion and, a vote on the action as outlined in the the agenda packet.
Okay. Commissioners, may I have a motion?
Oh, sorry. That's actually my fault. I thought there was an actual motion you needed to take in there, but looks like all you're receiving is information in conducting the public hearing. So
Okay.
retract that statement. No request for a motion needed.
Okay, so we retract that. No motion needed. It's late, we understand.
Yeah. Keep all the agenda straight.
Then can we adjourn this meeting?
Do we have our next meeting set?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that was the one thing I remember getting said earlier to discuss at the end of the meeting. So next.
Yeah, we can go ahead and if the commission's available next week on your, typically a Monday or Wednesday seems to fall best for the commission. Let us know if there's a preference. We'll follow up in an email afterwards to pin it down if necessary.
I
Both
prefer,
Go ahead. Sorry, Ann.
that's okay. I prefer Mondays.
Next Monday is fine with me. That would be October 18th, right?
Same with me. Monday's fine, or Wednesday, but Monday's probably better.
Okay. I moved them up as well.
At 6 p.m.
Yes.
6 p.m. is good.
Okay.
Robert, is that okay with you? We can't hear you.
You're muted.
There I am. Yes,
There.
it is. There I am. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. We're learning, so.
No. I'm learning. Listen, I have a camera now, and that's what I'm trying to figure out how the devil to use this thing. Anyway, yeah, we'll get it figured out.
Yes, sir. All right. So Monday next week at 6 p.m.
Sounds good to me.
We'll probably spend most of the time on two agenda topics. First, of course, will be the tool. Actually, it'll probably be the last item on the agenda, but we'll walk you through the final schedule. I believe we've got all the dates now confirmed, and thank you for responding to the doodle poll for availability. So we'll pin that down and then bring Spencer back, and we can talk about communication strategy to get the word out to the public regarding the workshops that are coming up. So, and then let me add to that. I do want to have a conversation with the commission around how you want the format for these workshops to go, right? We haven't spent a whole lot of time really thinking around how to, solicit meaningful feedback through these workshops. So we'll go ahead and agendize, talking about what that format looks like and how we want to support the public, providing, good feedback on the district. So probably those three topics next week, but please submit other ones to staff that you'd like added to the agenda. We'll make sure we get that added and continue to build us through this process and be ready for our first workshop.
Okay.
That's good.
Fantastic. Thank you for all the work. for staff's input and everything here.
Sure. Well, thanks for meeting with us every week. I'm impressed.
What we signed up for. But
Are we good now? Do we need a motion to adjourn?
We'll need a motion. Yep.
Okay.
we do.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Big 10-4.
All right, first by Kimball, second by Bernardi. Madam Clerk. No, do we have to? Yeah, we have to. Vote.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Bernardi?
Aye.
East?
Aye.
Kimball?
Aye.
Moreno?
Aye.
Demas?
Aye.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Great.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next
you.
Monday.
See you Monday.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Aye.